Hi there. So I decided in all my classes that I'm going to do a quick video that goes through the questions from the previous week's quiz and just explains real quick how things went. Most of you did fine on the quiz, but if you missed something, this just lets you know what you were supposed to do with it. The first question asked you whether a certain point was on the graph of some function. And all you do is you take the x, here that's -2, and you plug it into the function and see if the answer you get is the y at that point. The one thing that people often screw up on this is that when you take -2 squared, you get 4. And so you do need to be careful that you don't have a negative there. You notice when I did this on the calculator, I put it in parentheses. I did plug in -2. I got a final answer of 7, points -27, so yes, it's on the graph. The rest of these questions I really don't even need a calculator for. This one, it's saying what interval is graphed here. And if you looked at the video over this section, the big thing about this is that when you have a circle, it means we don't include the number. When you have a dot, you do. And the same thing goes with a parentheses, means you don't include the number. A bracket means you do. That's why the last choice with parentheses, -2, 5, bracket, that's the answer. A question several of you missed was this one, where it asks about the interval from -infinity to 2. And -infinity would be over at the left side of the number line where all the negative numbers are. This is saying you start at the left side and you include everything up through 2, but since it's parentheses, you don't include 2. I actually showed you a graph of what this would look like, and I think from the graph it might be clearer to most of you that this is x is less than 2, and that is why it's the very first choice here. Back in Algebra 1 or junior high, you did problems where you were figuring out whether things were functions. The vertical line test says if any vertical line touches the graph twice, it's not a function. Here, among other things, the y-axis would touch the graph twice, so no. The thing that's important on both this question and the next one is that when it asks you what like f of 0 is, it's asking you what's the y value when x is equal to 0. And on this one, when x is 0, you're at 4 on the y-axis, and that's why the answer is going to be 4. I think the most missed question on the quiz was this one, where it says, is f of -3 positive, negative, or 0? Well, what you want to do with this is you want to figure out where -3 is, like on the x-axis, and that means we want to go over toward the left-hand side. And the question's basically asking, is the y value on the graph there positive, negative, or 0? Well, we'd be looking up at the top of this sort of W shape, and it's going to keep going up and up and up to the left. We're actually going to have a really big positive number for y. The only place this is negative is between, about -1 3/4 and +2. Those would be the places it's negative. Everywhere else, it's going to be positive. And finally, the last question. So it's asking you about the domain, and domain means what can you plug in to this and get an answer. You had problems like this back in Advanced Algebra Trig, and in that class you would have written the answer as x doesn't equal -7. Now I've got some little number lines there that are showing you what that would look like. If you have x doesn't equal -7, that means you'd have everything on the number line except -7, which means you'd have everything from -7 down, you'd have everything from -7 up, but you wouldn't have -7. And if you go through your choices and you look at the one that's saying that, this is actually the second choice, where it's saying you go from -infinity to -7. The parentheses mean I skip over that. And then I go from -7 onward to infinity. You have basically x is less than -7, and then you also have x is greater than -7. So again, like B, the second choice, is the correct answer. That's going to end up being the problems that we have for last week. This week, we're going to look at some other stuff. We're going to start with some more ideas on functions, and then we review mostly how lines work.